A little boy named Jack grows up listening to his mother tell him an ancient and frightening legend before bed every night. Long ago, a group of monks discovered magic beans, hoping they would grow a pathway straight up to heaven. Full of hope, they planted the beans and climbed the enormous stalk that grew from the ground. But when they reached the top, they did not find heaven. They found something far more terrifying, a world called Gantua sitting between the earth and the sky, completely filled with enormous and ferocious giants, who were unlike anything the monks had ever imagined. The giants came down the stalk and began destroying everything in their path. They raided villages, stole everything they could carry, and developed a horrifying taste for human flesh. The human race was completely powerless against creatures so massive and so brutal. But the monks refused to give up. They turned to dark magic and crafted a powerful crown made from the melted hearts of the giants themselves. A brave king named Eric used this crown to take complete control over every single giant and force them all back up to Gantua, turning their own world into their prison. He cut down the beanstalk so they could never return, and peace finally came back to the land. The crown and the magic beans were buried with the king when he died, and over many generations, the whole terrifying story faded into nothing more than a legend that parents told their children at bedtime. That same night, on the other side of the kingdom, the exact same legend is being told to a little princess named Isabel by her mother. Her mother tells her something extra that most people do not know. King Eric was real, and Isabel herself carries his blood in her veins. She is a direct descendant of the man who saved the entire human race. Her mother wants her daughter to truly understand the world she lives in, because one day Isabel will become queen, and she will have the power to make that world either better or worse. That responsibility starts with knowing where everything came from. 10 years pass. Jack is now a grown young man living with his uncle on a small farm with very little money and even less patience from his uncle for big dreams. The uncle sends Jack into the city to sell their horse and cart and gives him one firm instruction: do not get distracted. Jack gets distracted almost immediately. He stops at a busy town theater where performers are acting out the legend of King Eric and the Giants for an enthusiastic crowd. Jack is completely drawn in, and in that same crowd he spots a beautiful girl watching the show. Their eyes meet, and something passes between them instantly. Before the play even finishes, 3 rough and threatening men begin harassing the girl outside the theater. Without thinking twice, Jack steps in to defend her and gets punched hard in the face for it. He keeps going anyway, pleading with the men to back off and leave her alone. Then, a royal guardian appears directly behind Jack. The 3 men take one look and immediately apologize. They want absolutely no trouble. When they see the girl climb calmly onto one of the royal horses, they drop to their knees in a hurry. Jack turns around completely confused, and the guardian tells him to kneel as well. That is when it finally hits him. The girl he just got punched in the face defending is Princess Isabel herself. He walks away from the theater feeling slightly embarrassed and immediately discovers that someone stole his cart while he was busy being a hero. The day is not going well. Meanwhile, across the city, a powerful nobleman named Roderick and his cold and calculating companion Wick are discussing Roderick's upcoming arranged marriage to Princess Isabel. Neither of them seems particularly excited about the marriage itself. What Roderick is truly interested in is power. They cross paths with a nervous monk in the street and let him pass without much attention. But when Roderick reaches a hidden room deep inside the castle where ancient relics are stored, he makes a horrifying discovery. The magic beans are gone. Someone has stolen them. The crown of King Eric is still sitting in its place, but the beans have completely vanished. Roderick immediately orders the city gates sealed and sends his men out to find the monk. The monk realizes very quickly that men are searching for him all over the city. He spots Jack in the street, still desperately trying to sell his horse, and seizes the opportunity. He offers Jack 10 gold coins for the horse, but confesses he does not actually have any money on him at that moment. Instead, he holds out a small leather pouch and offers the magic beans as collateral. Jack can take the beans to the abbey and exchange them there for the full amount promised. Jack is completely unimpressed by a handful of beans. The monk tells him firmly that these are ancient holy relics of enormous value. While Jack is still standing there trying to decide, the monk has already taken the horse by the reins and is quietly walking toward the city gate. Wicky's men catch him before he gets through and drag him away. Jack is left standing in the street holding a pouch of beans and no horse and no cart and no money. Back on the farm, Jack's uncle is absolutely furious. He grabs the beans and flings them off the table in a rage, telling Jack he needs to grow up. He is 18 years old and still making foolish decisions like a child. Some of the beans roll across the floor and fall through the cracks in the old wooden floorboards. That same evening, the king is giving Princess Isabel almost the exact same speech about responsibility and growing up. She snuck out of the palace again without her guardians, and the king is at the end of his patience. Isabel pushes back hard. She asks her father directly why he is forcing her to marry Roderick, a man twice her age who she does not love and has never chosen. The king tells her it is a political arrangement that is good for the kingdom. Isabel tells him she is not fragile and she is not helpless. The king looks at her with tired eyes and says she reminds him of her mother. Then he makes his final decision. She will marry Roderick. She will stay in the palace. That is the end of the discussion. Isabel leaves the room disappointed and quietly furious. And that same night she does exactly what her father feared she would do. She defies him again and slips away from the palace into the dark and stormy night with no guards and no plan, just a desperate need to feel free even for a few hours. She wanders through the rain, getting more and more lost until she sees a warm light coming from a small farmhouse nearby and follows it. She knocks on the door, and Jack opens it. He invites her inside without hesitation, and the two of them sit together talking while the storm hammers against the windows outside. They talk carefully at first, both pretending not to fully recognize each other. They talk about books and stories and adventure and the things they wish their lives could be. Jack tells her he got into a fight at the market defending a girl in the crowd. Isabel listens and smiles without giving herself away. He asks her what she is running away from. She says she is just looking for something real, something that actually belongs to her. Jack kneels slowly, making it completely clear he knows exactly who she is and always has. She tells him to stand. She thanks him sincerely for what he did at the market. He hands her his favorite book about the giants and tells her he hopes she finds what she is looking for. Neither of them notices what is happening beneath the floor. The rain has soaked deep into the ground and reached one of the magic beans that fell through the cracks earlier that evening. The bean stirs in the wet, dark soil beneath the house. Then it begins to grow. The floor starts shaking. Then it starts cracking. Then a massive green stalk explodes upward through the floorboards with a force that shakes the entire building. The house is lifted off the ground. Jack is thrown outside and grabs the stalk. Isabel is trapped inside the farmhouse as the whole structure rises into the black sky faster and faster, climbing impossibly high above the ground. Jack scrambles up the outside of the stalk, trying desperately to reach the house. He gets to the door. Isabel pulls it open from inside and nearly knocks him off into the darkness below. He reaches out and grabs her hand but cannot hold on. He falls. As he drops away, the only thing he manages to keep hold of is the bracelet on her wrist, tearing it free as he falls. Jack hits the ground at the foot of the beanstalk hard and passes out cold. When morning comes, the king is standing over him holding the bracelet with an expression that demands an explanation. Elmont, the head of the royal guardians, recognizes Jack from the market where he defended Isabel. Jack tells them everything. The king makes a decision. Jack will join the rescue mission. He will climb the beanstalk alongside Elmont and the king's best guardians and Roderick himself to bring the princess back safely. The climb is brutal and takes an entire day. The beanstalk stretches so high it disappears into clouds that normal people have never seen from above. Men are lost along the way, some of them falling in accidents and some of them because of Roderick, who is clearly working his own agenda and using the confusion to quietly eliminate people who might get in his way later. By the time they reach the top, only 6 of them are still alive. They step off the top of the beanstalk and into Gantua for the first time. The princess is not in the remains of the farmhouse, so they push deeper into giant territory to find her. Roderick grabs Jack the moment they are separated from Elmont and puts a knife against him, demanding the remaining magic beans. Jack hands over the pouch without a fight, but secretly palms one single bean and hides it inside his locket. Roderick threatens him to say nothing and walks away. Elmont and his men pick up a trail of small, deliberate clues that Isabel has left behind to help them find her. She has been carefully marking her path. Jack finds the book he gave her and correctly guesses she was hiding nearby before something found her. Broken branches overhead suggest something enormous pulled her out from above. Elmont splits the group and takes Jack and a guardian named Craw with him, while the others follow a separate trail. Their group stumbles upon a flock of enormous sheep and accidentally triggers a trap that snares all of them. While Elmont cuts them free, a sound approaches that makes everyone go silent. A giant steps out of the trees. It swallows an entire sheep without even pausing to chew. Then it catches Craw's scent and turns directly toward him. Craw runs, but the giant covers the distance in 3 steps and snatches him off the ground. Elmont draws his sword and charges, driving the blade into the giant's leg. The giant barely flinches and knocks Elmont out with one casual swipe of its hand. It grabs both men and walks away with them hanging from its fists. Jack follows it on foot, directly into the heart of the giant city. Meanwhile, the second group reaches a waterfall. The moment Roderick stops to rest, the Guardians turn on him and shove him off the cliff. They have worked out that he cannot be trusted. A giant spots Wick and swallows him in one bite. Another giant closes in on Roderick from behind. In that final, desperate second, Roderick pulls out the crown of King Eric and holds it up. Every giant in sight stops moving. They drop to their knees, as if an invisible force has pressed them down. Roderick straightens up and walks forward. He is in complete control. Inside the giant city, Isabel is being held in a cage by a massive general with two separate heads, named Fallon. He questions her, but she refuses to answer a single thing. When Fallon asks if others are coming for her, she tells him she is completely alone. But Fallon already knows the truth. He knows she is a descendant of King Eric, and he is not afraid. He shows her off to his soldiers like a captured prize, holding her up and announcing loudly to all of them that the humans have finally returned. When Elmont and Craw are dragged in and thrown before him, Fallon begins questioning them directly. Craw insults him. Fallon eats him right in front of everyone without hesitation. The message is received. Then Roderick walks in wearing the crown, and every single giant kneels immediately. Fallon kneels too, even though his eyes make it clear he despises every second of it. Elmont is relieved for a fraction of a second before he realizes what is actually happening. Roderick completely ignores him and walks straight to the giant throne and sits down in it. He announces to the entire army of giants that they now serve him as their king. He orders them to prepare for war. They will march on the earth at dawn and conquer it completely in his name. General Fallon seethes quietly, but the crown holds him in place. Jack slips through the edges of the giant city and finds a vast room piled from floor to ceiling with everything the giants have stolen from the human world over centuries. He hears Isabel's voice and moves toward it. She and Elmont are being taken to a giant kitchen and prepared to be eaten. Jack sneaks into the kitchen while the enormous cook is searching through his supplies for something. He cannot get to Isabel in time, so he focuses on Elmont first and slides a knife to him through the bars. The cook comes back and grabs Elmont, wrapping him in dough and sliding him into the oven like a loaf of bread. Jack climbs up the outside of the oven and cuts Elmont free before the heat gets to him. Elmont drops to the floor covered in raw dough and gasping. The cook pulls Isabel from her cage and raises a massive cleaver to finish the job. Jack grabs the largest cooking knife he can find and drives it into the giant's back. The giant roars and crashes itself backward into the stone wall. It slides to the floor and does not get back up. Elmont stares at Jack in genuine disbelief. The farm boy just killed a giant with a kitchen knife. Jack tells them both that he knows a way out, and they need to move right now. Back at the foot of the beanstalk on the ground far below, the king is debating with his general whether to cut the stalk down. His general warns him carefully. The stalk is the only way for the princess to get back. The king holds his hand and waits. Jack leads Isabel and Elmont through the outskirts of the giant city toward the edge of Gantua, where the beanstalk connects to the ground below. They find the edge and discover one giant standing guard, currently asleep in its post. Jack studies it for a moment and comes up with a plan. The two men creep forward in complete silence, carrying a beehive between them. They place it carefully inside the sleeping giant's face mask and walk quickly back to the others. The giant wakes up screaming as thousands of bees go to work inside the mask. It stumbles wildly in every direction and pitches forward off the edge of the cliff. The path to the beanstalk is clear. Elmont gathers them both and tells them he cannot go down. He has unfinished business with Roderick, and he cannot leave Gantua while that man is still wearing the crown. He makes Jack an official guardian on the spot, giving him the rank and the responsibility that comes with it. He tells Jack to get the princess home safely. Isabel hugs him and says goodbye. Jack and Isabel begin climbing down the enormous stalk toward the world below. Far below them, the falling giant crashes into the earth in front of the king and his army. The king has seen enough. He picks up his own sword and begins cutting the beanstalk himself, quietly asking his daughter to forgive him for what he is about to do. His general sees his resolve and immediately orders every available soldier to help. High above on the shaking stalk, Jack and Isabel feel the vibrations running through the vine beneath their hands. The stalk begins tearing itself apart from below. Jack grabs a thick hanging vine and swings them both clear of the collapse just in time. Elmont rides a falling section of the stalk all the way down to the palace walls and leaps off the last second before it crashes through the stone. The king stands at the bottom believing his daughter is dead. Then his general walks forward out of the dust and brings Isabel to him. She throws her arms around her father and then tells him everything about Roderick. He takes it all in and tells her he is deeply sorry. While they are reuniting, Jack quietly slips away from the crowd. When Isabel looks around and realizes he is gone, the king goes after him immediately. He finds Jack alone and tells him that as a father, there is no reward that could ever be enough for what Jack has done for his family. Isabel comes back out wearing a full suit of armor, already looking like the queen she is meant to become. As they say goodbye, Jack gives her the book about the giants to keep as a reminder of everything they went through together. She rides back to the palace beside her father. At that exact moment, high above in Gantua, General Fallon finds the remaining beans that spilled into the cave during Elmont and Roderick's struggle. He throws them into water without a moment of hesitation, and they instantly explode into life. Enormous stalks burst from the edge of Gantua, and the giants do not even wait for them to finish growing before they start climbing down. Fallon himself leaps onto a stalk and begins the descent toward Earth with his entire army behind him. Jack spots the giants dropping from the sky and kicks his horse into a full gallop toward the city. He shouts at a monk to ring every alarm bell in the tower. He reaches the king and Isabel and begins telling them urgently about the giants approaching. Then everyone behind him goes completely quiet, and he turns around to see the giants already arriving at the city walls. The kingdom explodes into chaos. Elmont gets the city defenses moving instantly. Archers flood the walls. Barrels of burning oil are positioned and ready. The giants crash through the outer lands and tear through the king's soldiers in the open field like they are nothing. Jack races for the city gates with giants right on his tail. The king makes it through, and the massive drawbridge begins rising before Jack can get to it. He pushes his horse and leaps at the last second, landing on the rising bridge. General Fallon leaps at the same moment and lands on the bridge too. Elmont triggers the burning oil, and a wave of fire rolls over Fallon, sending him screaming off the bridge and into the water-filled moat below. The other giants attack the walls from every direction. They rip burning trees from the ground and hurl them over the walls into the streets below. The soldiers fire back with spears and crossbows and slow the giants down, but cannot stop them. The giants find the chains on the drawbridge and hook into them, pulling the bridge down by sheer force. Elmont and his soldiers throw everything they have into holding it, but the giants are simply too powerful. Then from beneath the moat, General Fallon surfaces. He survived the fire and the water both. The king tells Isabel to reach the royal chambers at the top of the palace and light the signal beacon to call the other kingdoms for help. He tells Jack to stay with her and not leave her side. Isabel leads Jack through the castle using a hidden route through the royal catacombs deep beneath the palace. They pass directly by the ancient tomb of King Eric himself, the man whose crown started all of this. They climb up into the royal chambers, and Isabel moves toward the beacon. Then they hear something massive moving beneath the stone floor beneath their feet. General Fallon smashes straight up through the floor in an explosion of broken stone, and both of them run. Fallon tears through walls, chasing them by smell alone. Jack pulls Isabel into a narrow staircase too tight for the giant to follow. Fallon punches directly through the wall beside them. He grabs Isabel and rips her out. When Jack throws himself at the giant trying to free her, Fallon grabs him too without even looking. He raises Jack toward his open mouth to swallow him whole. Jack reaches into his locket with his free hand and takes out the last magic bean. He throws it straight down Fallon's open throat. The bean hits the warm, wet darkness inside the giant and immediately begins to grow. Roots tear through Fallon from the inside outward. Vines burst from his chest and shoulders and head in every direction. The giant is destroyed from within, and the force of the growth tears apart the entire upper section of the palace around them. As the giant collapses in pieces and the dust settles, the crown slides off what remains of Fallon and lands right next to Jack on the rubble. Outside, the remaining giants have pulled the drawbridge all the way down, and the soldiers brace for the giants to pour through. Then, every giant stops. They look up at the ruined palace and see the beanstalk tearing apart the building from the inside. Then from the wreckage, Jack appears, standing on the rubble, wearing the crown of King Eric. The giants stare at him. Then every single one of them drops their weapon. Then every single one of them kneels. Isabel walks through the dust and takes Jack's hand beside him. Many years later, Jack sits with his own children reading them the final pages of the story. The giants were sent back to their world forever. The princess married the farm boy she chose for herself. His children look up at him with wide eyes and ask nervously about the crown. They want to know if it is truly safe. They want to know if the giants could ever come back. Jack smiles and tells them the crown is in the safest place anyone could ever think to put it. Isabel walks into the room and smiles at her family. The camera drifts away from them and finds the crown sitting in a glass case under bright lights in Westminster Abbey in London, right where it has been ever since, hiding in plain sight among the greatest treasures of the world, displayed as part of the imperial state crown, patiently waiting and keeping its ancient secret for anyone curious enough to look closely.